The ground shook violently as an unexpected earthquake tore through the wildlife reserve. Fences buckled and gates twisted open, giving the cheetahs a sudden path to freedom. Visitors screamed and scattered as the sleek predators bolted into the open landscape. Park rangers struggled to keep balance while tracking the animals in the chaos. Like and subscribe to follow more heart-pounding stories from the wild to your screen. Dust clouds rose as aftershocks rattled the reserve, making rescue even more dangerous. Some cheetahs vanished into nearby villages, sparking fear among residents. Emergency teams raced to contain both the quake's damage and the roaming predators. The escape lasted hours, but the tension felt like it stretched on for days. By nightfall, most cheetahs were safely returned, but the reserve would never be the same. 1. The day the ground shook and cages broke, the earthquake struck with a roar that split the silence of the morning sky without any warning signs. In the city zoo, the vibrations rattled steel cages that held the fastest predators on Earth with power. The cheetahs paced restlessly as the ground buckled and the metal bars twisted from the quake forces. Handlers screamed for order, but the chaos drowned their voices as walls began to crack and tiles fell. Dust rose in choking clouds and the smell of fear hung heavy in the air as people searched for exits. A deafening crash echoed when one enclosure door burst open, sending a cheetah sprinting into the path. The predator moved like lightning across the zoo grounds, leaving staff stunned and powerless to react. Its golden coat blurred with speed as it vanished into the smoke-filled streets beyond the zoo walls. No one knew that this was just the first of many as more cages gave way to the quake's brutal shaking. Every second felt like an eternity as the city shifted from panic over the quake to fear of predators. The zoo sirens wailed over the rumble, warning citizens to stay indoors and avoid the streets ahead. Cars stopped abruptly as people abandoned them to hide in shops or lock their homes in terrified haste. The ground kept trembling and the cheetahs used the gaps to slip past barriers that once held them firm. Each escape sent a fresh wave of fear rippling through the neighborhoods closest to the zoo's gates. Police raced toward the scene, but the damaged roads slowed their arrival, giving the animals more time. News alerts began to spread on radios describing the strange sight of cheetahs roaming city avenues. Children were pulled inside by frantic parents who feared the predators more than the trembling earth. One brave zookeeper tried to follow the first cheetah on foot but lost sight of it within a few streets. The earthquake had freed not just one but a group, and the city was now host to a dangerous wild chase. The day would forever be remembered as the moment nature's speed met mankind's fragile control. 2. First sighting in the market district. The first civilian to spot an escaped cheetah was a shopkeeper arranging goods on his front stall. He froze when he saw the animal emerge from the dust, its amber eyes fixed and muscles tense to strike. Around him, the crowded market erupted into chaos as people screamed and ran in every direction. Stalls collapsed under rushing feet while the cheetah weaved through the confusion without slowing. It leapt over a toppled cart, its body stretching in graceful arcs that masked its lethal capability. The shopkeeper ducked behind sacks of grain, praying the predator would not notice his shaking frame. Vendors abandoned their earnings, scattering coins and produce across the cracked stone pavement. Children were scooped up by strangers who shoved them toward safety between shuttered doors nearby. The cheetah ignored most people, focused instead on finding a clear path away from the noisy crush. It vanished into a narrow alley, leaving behind silence broken only by distant quake aftershocks. Authorities tracking the animal marked the market district as a danger zone and blocked all access. Helicopters circled overhead, capturing grainy footage of the predator weaving through empty streets. Some brave residents watched from rooftops, fascinated by the rare sight of such speed in a city. The market's once vibrant sounds of bargaining and laughter were replaced by nervous whispers. Shops closed early that day, with owners locking doors and boarding windows against possible return. City officials urged calm but admitted they had no clear plan for recapturing the swift hunters. The scent of spices and fear hung in the air long after the cheetah disappeared beyond the alleys. News spread rapidly, drawing crowds to windows hoping to glimpse the animal from a safe distance. What began as a normal day of trade had become the first recorded hunt through a living city. The market would never be remembered for its goods again, but for the predator that once ruled it. 3. Panic in the residential areas. Cheetahs ran through quiet residential streets, causing chaos as families scrambled for safety quickly. Windows slammed shut and doors bolted while pets yelped and hid under furniture from the sudden threat. Children clung to parents as the predators dashed past yards, leaving small trails of dust in their wake. Some brave residents tried to capture videos, but the animals vanished before any clear footage formed. The quake's aftershocks made every step tremble, the ground intensifying fear among city dwellers. Neighbors called each other, warning of the wild cats prowling streets previously thought secure. Cars were abandoned with engines still running as citizens fled to safer roads and alleyways quickly. Trees shook as the cheetahs darted between them, their spotted coats blending perfectly with shadows. Dogs barked furiously but kept a cautious distance from the swift predators patrolling the neighborhood. The air smelled of dust and fear mixing together as silence followed the predators' rapid passage. Residents huddled in basements or attics whispering prayers while listening to distant wingless thuds. Some attempted to guide the animals toward open areas away from people but failed entirely. The cheetahs seemed to sense the presence of humans and carefully avoided confrontation while hunting. Streetlights flickered in the quake's wake, casting eerie halos across the cheetahs' stalking paths. The sun began to fade behind clouds filled with dust, leaving the city under dim and shifting light. Noise from collapsed buildings and alarms merged with distant footsteps, adding tension to the night. Families peered from hidden corners, seeing only shadows moving quickly across the cracked streets. By evening, the city realized the disaster had turned their quiet blocks into a dangerous hunting ground. Emergency services were stretched thin, dealing with both quake damage and the escaped wildlife now. The night would be long and tense as the cheetah's presence transformed ordinary homes into peril zones. Footprints marked dust and broken roads, showing the unpredictable paths of the fleeing animals. By morning, most were recaptured, but the memory of cheetahs in city streets haunted witnesses for years. 4. Crossing the main boulevard, the cheetahs reached the main boulevard where the city's heart once pulsed with constant traffic noise. Empty buses and cars sat abandoned under flickering lights, creating obstacles for the predator's path. Each animal navigated the maze with remarkable speed, leaving small vibrations echoing through concrete. The boulevard's wide open space allowed people hiding on balconies to watch the predators in awe. Dust clouds formed under their paws as the ground shifted slightly from quake tremors underneath. Some pedestrians who had not fled ran into alleys as the cheetahs approached silently but quickly. Street vendors who stayed to protect merchandise could only watch in terror and frozen disbelief. The quake had destroyed traffic signals, leaving the area eerily silent except for the pounding paws. The predators used the abandoned vehicles as cover, occasionally darting behind metal shells effortlessly. Bystanders documented the event on phones, sharing footage with news outlets and social media feeds. The animals' instinct guided them past obstacles without hesitation or slowing their perfect momentum. Occasional wind gusts stirred dust and debris, making the cheetah's spotted coats harder to distinguish. Helicopter lights above caused shadows to dance across the asphalt as the predators avoided detection. The city's most famous boulevard had become a surreal stage for an unplanned wildlife display. Some spectators noted that the cheetahs moved in coordinated patterns as if guided by an invisible plan. Vehicles' mirrors reflected distorted images of the predators, increasing the surreal impression on viewers. The empty boulevard emphasized how much nature had reclaimed the city in the aftermath of destruction. Authorities decided to block off cross streets while attempting to predict the cheetahs' next moves. It was a moment where human civilization met untamed wilderness in a silent and tense confrontation. The cheetahs crossed the boulevard like shadows, with power and elegance impossible to ignore. 5. The park chase. Cheetahs entered the central city park where fountains had collapsed and trees swayed with broken limbs. People watching from playgrounds froze as the predators darted through benches and shattered walkways. Grass flew under their paws and dust rose like smoke from the city's cracked paths and trails. The animals used fallen trees as obstacles to jump over, displaying athleticism no human could match. Joggers abandoned paths and climbed onto sculptures to escape the predator's sharp gaze and speed. Squirrels scattered wildly while birds rose into the sky, causing temporary flocks of chaotic motion above. The cheetahs paused only briefly, scanning for paths or hiding prey in the shadows of overturned statues. Emergency workers arrived on foot, attempting to guide animals toward open fields outside the city. The quake had left broken light posts and benches that the cheetahs used as markers for swift movement. Children watched from behind fences, whispering silently as if the predators could hear them clearly. Trees provided cover for sudden sprints, allowing the cheetahs to disappear and reappear unexpectedly. The park fountain spilled muddy water, adding obstacles that slowed no predator for even an instant. Pet owners held their animals close, fearing that the predators would see small mammals as food. The shattered paths reflected flickering sunlight through clouds dusted from the quake's aftermath. The chase became a game of survival between wild instincts and human anxiety heightened by fear. Some residents ran after the animals cautiously, hoping to track their direction without interfering. 6. The industrial zone. Crossing the cheetahs darted into the industrial zone where warehouses and factories lay in partial ruin. Rusting machinery created obstacles they leapt over effortlessly without slowing their powerful strides. The ground was littered with debris from the earthquake, making the predators' agility even more impressive. Workers who had stayed behind fled at the first sight of spotted shapes moving between containers. Dust and smoke from broken structures swirled around the animals as they navigated the maze of steel. The animals moved in coordinated bursts, blending instinct and speed to avoid human detection easily. Alarms from factories added an additional layer of noise, mixing with the distant tremors of aftershocks. Security cameras captured fleeting images that could not contain the full scale of their movement. Occasionally the cheetahs paused to scan surroundings before darting down narrow alleyways unseen. Rusting cranes and steel girders created natural hurdles that the animals cleared with effortless grace. Workers climbed to rooftops hoping to escape rather than confront the predators in the streets below. Some believed the cheetahs were testing the city for escape routes or safe zones to rest briefly. The industrial zone echoed with the thuds of paws and distant rattling of quake-damaged walls. Smoke from broken chimneys added to the illusion of shadows moving in a haunted mechanical maze. 7. Crossing the riverbank. The cheetahs reached the riverbank where broken railings and toppled trees created natural obstacles. Water from the quake-damaged river channel swirled while the predators navigated the muddy banks easily. Reflections shimmered in the water as the animals' coats glinted briefly before disappearing behind foliage. People watched from bridges in fear, noting the impossible speed at which the predators moved downstream. Fallen logs and debris became perfect jumping points, allowing cheetahs to continue their uninterrupted chase. Boats left abandoned from the flood risk floated dangerously close but did not impede their graceful movement. The river's current added another layer of danger for humans but no obstacle for the agile cheetahs. Some feared the predators would attempt to swim or follow humans escaping along the banks at night. The animals paused briefly to scan the area before sprinting again across muddy soil and scattered debris. Birds took flight, creating clouds of feathers and movement that blended with the cheetah shadows. Bridges shook slightly under the weight of quake damage while spectators whispered prayers silently. Emergency services marked the riverbank as high-risk, warning anyone not to approach or intervene. Children's cries could be heard from nearby homes as parents pulled them inside, keeping them safe. The riverbank became a corridor for the predators, moving with precision between human and nature zones. The cheetah's speed and awareness made every moment they were seen feel like a surreal wildlife spectacle. 8. Rooftop sightings. Some cheetahs climbed low roofs or jumped from walls, giving residents views from high vantage points. People on balconies watched frozen as spotted predators leapt with uncanny grace across rooftops. The animals' movements blurred under the dim city lights, creating surreal shadows against the walls. Some photographers tried to capture images while remaining hidden behind railings and rooftop barriers. Children clutched parents tightly, pointing at movement that felt almost unreal above their heads. The earthquake damage made roofs unstable, but the cheetah's balance prevented any accidents entirely. Emergency teams on the ground could only look up helplessly as the predators evaded capture again. The city skyline became a stage for predators moving between chimneys and broken terraces swiftly. Wind gusts carried dust and loose tiles, creating small obstacles that the cheetahs navigated effortlessly. Some residents claimed the animals looked directly at them, as if assessing human reactions carefully. The thrill of watching predators so close created a mixture of fear and fascination across the city. From rooftops it was possible to see patterns in their movement, suggesting intelligence and strategy. The predators paused occasionally, blending with shadows, making them nearly invisible to observers. Even dogs below froze, noticing silhouettes above, but dared not approach the sharp-clawed hunters. Families stayed in clusters watching the cheetahs, silently wishing they would disappear safely soon. 9. Narrow alley maneuvers. The cheetahs ran through narrow alleys, weaving between overturned carts and damaged trash bins. The confined space forced the predators to use precise body control, avoiding collisions with walls. Residents peered from windows, noting their agility and speed while remaining completely safe indoors. Dust and rubble rose with every step, adding to the surreal and chaotic atmosphere of the night. The animals paused briefly to assess routes, then sprinted again, disappearing into intersecting alleys. Dogs and cats inside buildings watched in tense silence as the predators claimed the narrow streets. Emergency crews blocked some paths, trying to contain them, but failed as animals leapt over barriers. The alleyways echoed with distant paw thuds, giving the impression of multiple predators moving fast. Some alleys became temporary hideouts for frightened civilians as cheetahs passed by, hunting silently. Streetlights flickered, casting moving shadows that made the predators almost invisible in the darkness. Residents whispered warnings to neighbors, noting the next possible appearance around corners or walls. The quake's aftershocks added tremors, making navigation for humans difficult but effortless for the animals. Some pedestrians who had returned to check homes retreated quickly, seeing the predators vanish again. Ken, the night approaches calmly. By late night, the cheetahs moved quietly across the city as if surveying what areas remained safe. Emergency services coordinated quietly, hoping to track them without startling or endangering humans. The streets were empty, with only occasional distant cries echoing through damaged and twisted roads. Wind carried dust and the faint smell of fur mixing with the lingering scent of earthquake debris. Civilians stayed indoors, observing shadows from high windows, remaining safe while curious about movement. The predators paused occasionally, blending with darkness before sprinting again in calculated bursts. Animals in homes remained restless, sensing the presence of apex predators roaming nearby streets. The city began to breathe slowly as the cheetahs moved away from populated zones, seeking open areas. Helicopters continued observation from above, capturing brief glimpses of their elusive, graceful forms. By midnight, the energy in the streets shifted as the predators avoided areas with human activity entirely. Some citizens whispered stories comparing the night to legends where wild cats ruled the urban jungle. Parents reassured children that the animals would eventually leave once they felt safe beyond city walls. The predators' movements became rhythmic and predictable only to those observing quietly from above. The quake had unleashed a night where humans had to coexist briefly with the fastest hunters alive. Lights flickered in homes and streets as the city attempted to restore normalcy while remaining alert. 11. Clash at the suburban outskirts. The cheetahs reached the suburban outskirts, where small houses lined quiet, cracked streets. Residents froze as the predators ran past yards, leaving dust and debris in their powerful wake. Dogs barked and ran, but no pack could match the speed and agility of the wild hunters. Children clutched parents tightly, hiding behind fences while animals scanned the area swiftly. A stray cat darted into a garage, narrowly avoiding the predator's sharp gaze and rapid movement. Some homeowners tried to drive the cheetahs away, but engines and horns failed to deter them. The cheetahs weaved between parked cars and garden fences, moving with precise control effortlessly. Streetlights flickered as their shadows stretched across walls, creating eerie images of motion. Neighbors watched silently from windows, hoping the animals would continue past without harm. Emergency teams marked the area as dangerous, warning everyone not to leave homes for any reason. The predators seemed uninterested in humans unless provoked, and focused on exploring new territory. Backyards became temporary hunting grounds as the cheetahs navigated bushes and overturned furniture. 12. The highway dash. The cheetahs reached the city highway, now partially destroyed by the earthquake's relentless force. Abandoned cars and cracked asphalt created a challenging terrain for humans, but not for predators. Emergency responders tried to block their path, but the animals maneuvered around obstacles effortlessly. Dust and gravel flew under each paw as they sprinted along the lanes at unimaginable speeds. The highway appeared deserted except for the cheetahs and a few stranded civilians watching cautiously. Streetlights reflected on broken windshields, creating shimmering patterns across the moving animals. Traffic signs swayed dangerously in the quake's aftershocks as shadows danced across the road. The predators used the open space to test their speed, running in coordinated bursts with precise timing. Helicopters hovered overhead, tracking their movements while reporting positions to ground teams. The cheetahs paused momentarily on overpasses before leaping down onto the cracked lanes below. Some witnesses captured footage in awe, unable to believe the wildcats were running free on a highway. The predators' golden coats shimmered briefly in the flickering streetlights as they moved past. 13. Into the farmland. The cheetahs entered farmland outside the city, where open fields stretched as far as the eye could see. Tractors lay overturned from the earthquake, while fences had collapsed, leaving gaps for predators. Farm animals sensed danger and scattered as the cats sprinted across pastures with unmatched speed. Dust swirled in clouds behind them, marking their passage through wheat and barley fields alike. Residents watching from farmhouses marveled and feared the predators navigating their property swiftly. Cows and sheep stampeded in panic while the cheetahs ignored them, focusing solely on their path. Fences provided minor obstacles, but the animals leapt effortlessly over wooden and metal barriers. Dogs that tried to protect livestock were quickly outpaced by the predators' superior agility. The cheetahs used hedges and irrigation ditches as cover as they moved silently between farms. Tractors and barns provided visual obstacles which the cats avoided with astonishing precision. Farmers stayed indoors, watching the movements cautiously and recording the events from windows. The sound of paws thudding on soft earth echoed through the fields as animals moved quickly. 14. Night in the forest edge. The cheetahs entered the forest at the outskirts, where trees swayed from the earthquake's tremors. Branches broke under the quake, leaving open paths which the animals exploited to continue their flight. The canopy allowed them to hide while hunting smaller wildlife disturbed by the tremors below. Owls hooted nervously while smaller mammals scattered as predators moved silently through shadows. The forest floor was uneven, but the cheetahs navigated it with the balance of elite hunters perfectly. Streams and fallen logs provided natural obstacles which they crossed with leaps and calculated strides. Some forest workers caught glimpses of the predators darting between trees before disappearing completely. The forest became a corridor of speed and shadows as the cats moved quickly in coordinated bursts. The night air carried the scent of wet earth and fear of animals startled by predators passing nearby. Moonlight occasionally reflected on their coats, creating fleeting flashes that seemed almost supernatural. Birds took flight as the cheetahs sprinted past but quickly disappeared into underbrush again. Even experienced wildlife trackers were amazed at their ability to traverse the forest silently and swiftly. 15. Crossing the highway again, the cheetahs re-emerged from forests near a secondary highway lightly damaged from the earthquake. Vehicles abandoned by fleeing drivers created obstacles that the cats navigated effortlessly with precision. Emergency crews on patrol marked the area but kept distance, knowing the predator's speed was unmatched. The animals sprinted in bursts across asphalt lanes, leaving dust and gravel kicked up in clouds behind. Streetlights flickered in wind and quake aftershocks, casting elongated shadows on the moving cats. Witnesses in distant overpasses watched silently as predators darted between broken guardrails safely. Paw prints and debris showed the path of their movement through lanes that had been chaotic before. The highway became a temporary stage demonstrating the cheetah's unmatched ability to traverse any terrain. Some residents filmed the events from distance but feared approaching the predators under any circumstances. The animals paused briefly on shoulders of the road before continuing in measured yet rapid strides. Every movement displayed grace, precision, and control impossible for humans to match in any scenario. The secondary highway became part of a vast corridor linking forest, city, and farmland for the predators. Emergency alerts warned residents to remain indoors and avoid any interaction with the cheetahs entirely. The animals moved silently past overpasses and bridges, observing but not engaging humans in sight. 16. Across the open plains, the cheetahs reached wide open plains where tall grasses swayed in breeze and earthquake vibrations remained. The predator's speed became visible in long unbroken sprints across the natural landscape unimpeded. Dust clouds rose behind each leap, showing the immense force and momentum carried by their powerful legs. Rabbits and small mammals scattered in all directions, feeding the cat's instinct to hunt despite humans nearby. The plains offered cover from observation yet allowed the cheetahs to display speed in uninterrupted bursts. Residents from distant farms watched cautiously, keeping distance as the predators dominated the terrain. Emergency teams followed carefully, noting tracks and paw prints to anticipate direction without engagement. The sun's first rays illuminated golden coats, blending with dry grass in almost perfect camouflage. Every stride demonstrated efficiency of movement, making even long distances effortless for the cats. Some predators paused to scan surroundings, sensing humans or other animals nearby before sprinting again. Wind carried the sound of distant paw thuds and low growls, warning of predators' movement to wildlife. Tracks and flattened grasses marked their passage, making the night's chaos visible in morning light. Farmers whispered about the animals' passage, noting awe-inspiring speed and natural elegance combined. By mid-morning, the cheetahs had moved to riverbanks and wooded areas, seeking cover and water sources. 17. River crossing, the cheetahs reached a wide river swollen with water from quake-displaced tributaries and rainfall. Some animals hesitated briefly before jumping over smaller channels, while others chose shallow fords. The riverbank was muddy, slippery, but the predators navigated it with balance unmatched by humans. Tracks in wet soil marked the precise path taken during each sprint and leap across broken banks. Fish leapt from disturbed water as the cheetahs passed silently over mud and shallow flowing streams. Emergency observers kept distance, documenting movements from safe elevated positions along the shore. The river became another natural obstacle that the predators used to demonstrate flexibility and agility. Small animals hiding near the banks fled quickly under instinctual awareness of apex hunters approaching. Sunlight reflected off water, creating shimmering patterns that temporarily revealed coats before shadows hid them. Some cheetahs paused briefly to drink before moving along banks, maintaining speed and alertness. Residents in river-adjacent houses remained indoors, watching cautious movements from secure windows. The flow of water created minor disturbances but did not slow the swift movements of the predators. The quake had shifted landscapes, forcing animals to adapt quickly while humans monitored from distance. 18. Through the woodland, the cheetahs entered dense woodland where fallen trees and thick underbrush challenged human observers. Branches cracked underfoot of smaller animals fleeing the apex hunter's rapid and calculated movements. Sunlight filtering through canopy revealed flashes of spotted coats in motion between shadows and foliage. The animals paused occasionally, scanning surroundings before continuing along narrow trails with precision. Emergency teams followed from edge of woods, keeping safe distance, avoiding startling predators unnecessarily. Small mammals and birds scattered as the cheetah's passage disturbed ecosystem temporarily but effectively. The woodland floor was uneven, yet the cat's balance allowed them to leap over roots and fall in debris effortlessly. Observers documented movements, noting how speed and stealth were combined flawlessly in natural environment. Wind carried scent and sound that revealed minor clues to predators' presence without slowing their movement. Tracks in soft soil marked long strides and elegant landings across every obstacle encountered along the path. Some cheetahs paused on elevated roots or rocks, surveying surroundings before continuing swiftly along trails. Woodland shadows gave perfect camouflage, allowing them to disappear completely from human observation. The ground split open as the earthquake struck, shaking enclosures and startling the restless cheetahs. Walls crumbled in the zoo, creating sudden gaps through which the frightened cheetahs bolted outside. Sirens wailed across the city as news spread that the swift predators were now running free in streets. People rushed indoors, locking doors and windows while scanning the shadows for sudden movements. Some cheetahs sprinted wildly, disoriented by chaos, while others paused to stalk in eerie silence. 19. Approaching farmlands at dusk. As dusk fell, the cheetahs reached farmlands where crops and barns had been damaged by the earthquake. Dust rose under their paws as they sprinted across fields, while birds and small animals scattered in panic. Fences collapsed in some areas, providing minimal obstacles, while others jumped over with extraordinary skill. Farmhouses lit by faint candlelight revealed silhouettes moving swiftly across open terrain in the shadows. Residents stayed indoors, aware of predators yet fascinated by the grace and power displayed during passage. Cattle and sheep fled to enclosed areas while the cheetahs maintained distance, focused on open ground navigation. The animals used hedges and ditches as cover, allowing them to move without drawing attention to themselves. Emergency alerts reminded residents to avoid outdoor areas, warning about apex predators roaming freely. Some photographers documented movement from safe elevated positions, observing incredible natural speed. The farmlands had become temporary corridors connecting forests, riverbanks, and open plains seamlessly. Tracks were visible in soft soil, showing direction and stride of predators who moved with calculated effort. Occasionally, the cheetahs paused to scan surroundings before continuing movement toward safer habitats. The quake had opened pathways across lands usually inaccessible to apex hunters, allowing free passage. Evening shadows enhanced camouflage, making predators almost invisible while moving through farmland terrain. 20. Safe return to wilderness. Finally, the cheetahs reached the safety of vast wilderness beyond urban and farmland limits entirely. Forest and grasslands provided natural cover and hunting opportunities, restoring a sense of security for predators. Emergency services monitored from a distance, ensuring humans were safe while the animals regained calm. Tracks and disturbed earth marked their passage through city streets, riverbanks, woodland, and fields. The journey had demonstrated adaptability, speed, and intelligence far beyond ordinary expectations observed. Wildlife in surrounding areas reacted to presence but soon settled as predators moved steadily through terrain. The night had tested humans' ability to coexist with apex hunters released by disaster and environmental chaos. Civilians slowly emerged after confirmation the predators were no longer near populated areas safely. Researchers documented data for understanding predator behavior in extreme urban disruption conditions. The cheetahs moved freely through wilderness, reclaiming territory interrupted briefly by city and earthquake. Humans remained in awe of speed, stealth, and mastery shown by apex predators navigating complex environments. The earthquake had caused chaos but also revealed nature's ability to adapt rapidly to human disturbances. Observers learned the importance of respecting wildlife boundaries while acknowledging their extraordinary skill. The predators vanished into distant forests, leaving minimal evidence except for tracks and disturbed vegetation. City residents reflected on the night as a remarkable story of survival and natural instinct in action. In the days after the quake, repairs began to restore the damaged enclosures and safety. Wildlife experts studied how natural disasters can lead to sudden animal escapes. The incident became a lesson in disaster readiness for every wildlife park in the region. Like and subscribe to hear more gripping accounts of nature colliding with human life. Comment below with your thoughts on protecting both people and wildlife in crises. Nature's power can break even the strongest of human-made barriers in seconds. The earthquake proved that in moments of chaos, survival instincts always take over. The memory of cheetahs racing free during tremors will never fade for those who saw it. It was a reminder that nature's unpredictability is both dangerous and awe-inspiring. Thanks for watching.